Well, maybe you could share that story. So what made you religious? I'm religious since birth. I grew up in a Jewish home. We were fairly religious from the time that I was young. We became fully Orthodox when I was 11, and was with my parents, my whole entire immediate family. But how did you become a religious person?
I don't think of myself as religious, but I understand that you're using the word in a
Broadly
neutral
speaking,
sense. Yeah. In high school, I was going through a deep existential crisis, looking for meaning in life, the meaning of my existence, who I was. I later discovered existentialist philosophers were asking the same questions, and I never knew it. So I was filled with darkness and despair as I saw my impending death, the impending death of the universe, and no meaning to it all. And I walked into my high school German class one day, and I sat down behind a girl who's one of these types, that is always so happy it just makes you sick. And I tapped her on the shoulder, and she turned around, and I said to her, "Sandy, what are you always so happy about anyway?" And she said, "It's because I know Jesus Christ is my personal Savior." And I said, "You what?" I said, "Well, I've gone to church." And she said, "Well, that's not enough, Bill. You've got to have him really living in your heart." And I said, "Well, what would he want to do a thing like that for?" And she said, "Because he loves you, Bill." And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Here I was so filled with despair and anger. And she said there was someone who really loved me. And who was it but the God of the universe? And that thought just staggered me, to think that the God of the universe could love me, Bill Craig, that worm down there on that speck of dust called planet Earth. I just couldn't take it in. Well, I went home that night and found a New Testament. And for the first time in my life, I opened it and began to read it. And as I did, I was absolutely captivated by the person of Jesus of Nazareth. There was a wisdom about this man's teachings that I had never encountered before. And there was an authenticity about his life that I couldn't deny. And as I read the New Testament, I saw why God seemed so unreal to me. It was because my sin, my moral wrongdoing, it created a separation between me and God, so that I was alienated from him and couldn't experience that love relationship that he had created me to have, but that he had sent Christ to atone for those sins, and that through Christ I could have forgiveness and a restoration of that relationship. And so after about 6 months of the most intense soul searching that I've ever been through, one night I just came to the end of my rope and cried out to God. And I felt this tremendous infusion of joy, like a balloon being blown up until it was ready to burst. And I rushed outside. It was a warm Midwestern September evening. And as I looked up at the sky, I could see the Milky Way from horizon to horizon. And as I looked up the stars, I thought, God, I've come to know God. And that moment changed my whole life, because I had thought enough about this during those 6 months to realize that if Bill Craig ever became a Christian, I could do nothing less than give my entire life to spreading this message among mankind. Because if this is really the truth, if it's really the truth, it's the greatest news ever announced. And so my call to Christian ministry was simultaneous with my conversion experience, and I've never looked back.
So